Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle. I'm your host, Marianne, and if you've been with me for a while, you know we've explored the power of the mind, the stories we carry, and the ways those stories shape our lives. And today we're stepping back into this conversation because midlife has a way of inviting us to slow down and to take another look and to pull back another layer, and I hope we're going to do that today. My guest today is someone who understands that process intimately. Michelle Walters is a clinical hypnotherapist, a marketing coach, a speaker, an award-winning author, and a fierce advocate for imagination as a tool for healing and reinvention. After a successful corporate career in the digital marketing, Michelle's life cracked open when she lost her partner at the end of the pandemic. That heartbreak became the catalyst for deep transformation, ultimately leading her into the world of clinical hypnotherapy. Since then, she's been helping people release outdated patterns, rethink long-held beliefs, and create new pathways to a happier, more aligned life. Michelle believes the subconscious isn't a place where memories live, it's a space where possibility lives. And today we're diving into how you can harness that possibility to rewrite old scripts, reconnect with curiosity, and step more fully into the next version of yourself. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad to talk to you. I'm so interested in some of these topics that we're going to talk about. So before we get into the specifics, set the stage for us, because we talked a little bit about a event that happened at the end of the pandemic, and that seems to be the catalyst for a lot of your change. Talk us through that. Little before, a little after.
There was a lot of build up to getting there. I grew up in California. I went to business school in Seattle, and then I worked in digital marketing for about 20 something years. I trained on the side as a to be a clinical hypnotherapist on the weekends because I just found it fascinating. And then my husband had passed away in 2011. And so I met my dream guy in 2015, and we were so happy together, so in love, and he was healthy, and it was just, everything was coming together great when he got diagnosed by a really weird disease that like 3,500 Americans get it every year. I mean, it's just extremely rare. And he was kind of on the road to dying for about a year and passed away in November 2021.
So sorry.
So it was during the pandemic. He didn't have COVID, but it was kind of during that time when all the services were messed up and just not a good time to be unhealthy.
It was awful.
Yeah. I decided that I was going to go out and help people and started working as a clinical hypnotherapist the following year. I rented an office and started seeing clients. And people have come to me for all kinds of interesting things. I love this work because I am such an advocate of the power of the mind. I tell people that I help with people's message and their mindset and their momentum, because you got to have all this stuff going in the right direction, or you often kind of sink yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see people sink. I get it. I've been in states of grief. I've had bad days, bad weeks, even bad months. Somehow you got to find a way to pick yourself up when life kicks you in the knees. And one of the ways that I like to use to help people with trauma, but also I also help with weird little common problems, is hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
So let's dig into that a little bit. I know you started to work with this. You joined Hypnosis and your marketing background and the AI to create the Make My Hypno. Is that right? Am I saying it right? Mm-hmm. So which delivers personalized hypnosis recordings to people, right?
Yeah.
So I'm so curious about how that's working out and what that looks like because, well, I think there's probably going to be a listener out there that is, and I'll probably raise my hand, still on the fence about hypnosis in general. But then we're saying, all right, I'll package it up and I'll send you something and you can sort of do it by yourself.
So let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's first talk about what is hypnosis, because that is oftentimes where people have the first sticking point, right?
Yeah.
Hypnosis is perfectly natural. You have been in a state of hypnosis in the last 24 hours. You just don't know it. Every single person goes in and out of this trance state, usually several times throughout the day. And for sure, every night as you fall asleep and every morning as you wake up, that sort of, I've heard it called the golden handshake, but that sort of moment where you go between being awake and being asleep, you pass through a state of hypnosis. It's a trance state. It's a state where certain parts of your brain dial down. And when you get into that state, what happens is you naturally become more open to suggestions. You become more focused on things. And you become less associated, more dissociated, meaning more dreamy, more able to imagine things about your body. So there's nothing mysterious or weird or scary about being in a state of hypnosis. The other thing to realize is that your subconscious, which is what we're working with in hypnosis, your subconscious's job is to take care of you. And so it doesn't let anything happen in a state of hypnosis that your subconscious thinks is going to be harmful. So the only thing that can really happen in a state of hypnosis is persuading your subconscious to do something within the realm of what it thinks is okay for you, but maybe to do it a little bit more or a little bit different or a little bit better, which is why, if I'm working with a client who wants to quit smoking, we're going to figure out how do we sort of replace the urge to smoke with a practice of drinking water or tapping the back of your hand or sucking on a lollipop or whatever it is the person wants to do as a replacement for that thought. So there's really nothing scary about hypnosis to be worried about. And then the second thing is recordings. So I often have made clients recordings, still do, for them to listen to because your brain likes to listen to things on repeat. And that repeat tends to go deeper in the subconscious and it can help you to change practices. And so this is why people for years have been listening to tapes and recordings and that kind of a thing, because they tend to help you assemble a new way of thinking about something. And so often when I'm working with a client, I would make the client a recording to supplement our work and to use between our sessions. I realized earlier this year, I was like, but wait, I could do this in an automated way so that people can get their recordings without me having to sit in front of the microphone. And what I determined upon testing was that I can get AI to produce a recording. It's part AI, it's not all AI, but it's part that people love and adore and is really good at. I mean, there are things that AI is not good at, but AI is good at a few things that happen to be the things you would want it to be good for to make hypnosis recordings. So AI is very positive. Hypnosis is always very positive. AI is very fluent, right? Like it's very, the whole thing is to put the right word after the word before, right? So it sounds very natural. And then AI is also very associative, which is how your subconscious works. Your subconscious works by associating one idea with another. And so AI actually does a fantastic job of, once I taught it how, I had to teach it how, of being able to put this together. And so I thought, well, I don't see why not to incorporate this tool that would do this so well. And why not make it so people could get their own recordings? So I created Make My Hypno a few months ago, and it's starting to be purchased. And the reports I hear from the purchasers are that they love their recordings. So, I thought, oh, it's good. I think it's good enough. But then when I've given it to people, I'm like, no, actually, it's really good. So,
Well, the thing that just came to my mind was probably the thing I hear most, or I've heard most in my lifetime with people that were leery of hypnosis is, well, what if they plant a seed that I don't like? Or what if she's rolling her eyes, you guys. But as I sit here and talk to you, they can't, that can't happen in a tape because it's not live. So I'm listening. I can listen to what's
yeah,
going to be put into my subconscious, right? So that takes that element out of it at least.
when I've made recordings for clients before I had Make My Hypno, I've had a couple of clients say, well, I fall asleep and I just don't even know what you put into the recording.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, just play the recording next time you're doing the dishes and listen to it. Like there's, I'm not trying to hide something from you. It's all there, whether you're awake or asleep.
Yeah.
But your subconscious really doesn't, if it is afraid of something that it hears while you're in that trance state, what happens is you kind of wake up and pop out. That's what happens. So I sort of joke when I teach hypnosis classes, if I put you in this trance state and then I tell you you're going to open your eyes and the world will be upside down, you're not going to believe me. You just start to wake up is what happens, right? And so, yes, I think it is good to be mindful of whose recordings you're listening to and making sure you trust that person and that kind of a thing. And that you like their voice and you like how it sounds and it sounds good to you. But you don't need it. The movies do a great job of making hypnosis so interesting and dramatic and
Yeah.
exciting. I saw a movie recently and one of the bad guys hypnotized the guards so that they were playing the violin and not paying attention to the bad guys robbing the store or whatever. And, oh, okay, great for the movies, not realistic.
That's really funny. Well, and I think we've all seen, well, maybe not all, but we've seen things where people get hypnotized as part of like a nightclub act or something like that, right? And people do
silly things. Yeah.
Yes, that's the good word. Silly things. So I don't know. Would they believe the world is upside down? Maybe. I don't know, right?
The thing about folks in a hypnosis show that most other audience people don't realize is that they're just people. They're just people who are okay at a subconscious level with being on stage, and they are particularly hypnotizable. Some people are more hypnotizable than others. It's just it's a natural trait. But you go to a nightclub, you see this kind of show, you don't have to feel sorry for those people. They would not be there if they didn't want to be.
No, but sometimes you might think, wow, they're really making them do crazy things. Like they wouldn't probably do that if they weren't hypnotized. So that adds to that assumption, right?
But it's kind of that magic of being in that place of suggestible and dissociated.
Mm-hmm.
That you kind of get to a place where it's like, yeah, it's okay. I can just pat the top of my head if I'm asked to do that. And, what's the harm in it?
Yeah.
There are hypnotherapists who are very anti-stage hypnosis.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I think people are smart enough to be able to understand that context.
Yeah.
It's about context, right?
I mean, I could see why there would be fundamentalists who are against it, but yes, I get it. I get what you're saying. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, a rewind again. So we're focusing on the subconscious. That's what it's all about. Let's get into that subconscious that we can't easily find ways to tap into and to give different perspective to. And we're saying that hypnosis is a great tool at doing that. So I'm curious, when you were going through your own transformation, was there always awareness of all the things that you needed to work on, or the things, right? So you're human. So is there something that you can point to as an example of where your subconscious was really driving the car that you learned to shift?
How would I answer that? I guess one of the things that I would say is that when my partner Scott died, I was in a state of deep grief. And I had a grief therapist who was actually a teacher at my hypnotherapy school, how I met him. And through some of that work together, I got a better sense of how important it was to acknowledge the things in my heart and to give space to that,
Hmm.
but also how it was important to be able to still see the sunshine and still recognize my son's accomplishments
Yeah.
and find other things to keep my spirits up, because there are times, and it might be through loss of a loved one, it might be through trauma, it might be through financial despair. There are things that come up that make life really, really hard.
Yeah.
And for me, learning techniques on how to both recognize, accept, live with that grief, but simultaneously begin to build a new
Yeah.
life, begin to smell the roses, so to speak, was essential.
I love that answer. It made me think about one of the things that I've learned in the last handful of years is to replace the
Yeah.
but with the and. And that's what I just
Yes.
heard when you were saying that, right? It was really about acknowledging that grief and the loss and all the things that go with that, and acknowledging the light in your life, the accomplishments and the joys. And the two things, and I think it's worth saying this, which is why I'm reiterating it, the two things can live together. I think so often we sometimes get stuck in one or the other, and because we think we have to choose somehow. And I think learning to be able to live in that duality of good and bad and happy and sad and all the things, I think it really changes things.
Absolutely. It's kind of like looking at the world in black, white, and grayscale, or looking at the world
Yeah.
with lots of different colors.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it is, dogs or cats or whatever. If you ever see a picture, the way that the dog sees the world, like, different photons in people's cell or eye cells work differently in different animals, like not every being here on earth is seeing the world exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why you have to see the world in a black way or a white way,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of space in the middle. And I think it's important to make space for the people who are just having such a crummy day that there's nothing you can say to pull them out of it,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you just have to have that day. But the sun's going to come up again tomorrow. And tomorrow doesn't have to look anything like today. And how are you going to set yourself up for a lot of good presence, meaning moment presence, right?
Being present.
Yeah.
Yes. And being intentional. Yeah. I think that, many of us have, whether you call them, limiting beliefs, inner dialogue, mental scripts, trauma in some cases, but we have these things on recycle, or they just kind of sort of go round and round.
It's like a broken record, right?
Yeah. And I think some of the work you do is shifting that, is changing those, if we're talking records, changing the track. Changing, I think there actually is a book called Soundtracks around this stuff, but what we hear in our heads and our voices. So how does that work in the work that you're doing? Like, where do you see people get stuck most often, and what are some of the most effective tools that you see with trying to shift that stuff?
I think the problem that some people have is they don't even quite realize that they are listening to the same record on repeat,
Yeah.
and that record on repeat is, you're not good enough. You'll never be a success. You can't do this. This is, not going to work. Yeah, it'll work for everybody else, but not for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of people, I think, fall into that space of that's the internal script they're hearing. And that's absolutely not the only internal script that can play, right? That is
Yeah.
that's like one record that you could put on the record player, right? You can take that record off and put a different record on the record player. And maybe that record, that the new record isn't, you're going to be a rock star tomorrow, but maybe there are a lot of people who love you, and spend your time with the people who love you,
Yeah.
you know? Something a lot of famous people have said, I think it's wise advice, is, Are you treating yourself the way your best friend would want you treated? I think that's a nice lens because, you would never want your best friend to put herself down all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so you shouldn't be putting yourself down all the time. Sometimes people don't need a whole lot of help to get out of that kind of a rut and into a better space about it. And sometimes people, their problems are deeper or weirder or that kind of a thing. And then working with a clinical hypnotherapist in one-on-one practice can be really, really helpful. I created Make My Hypno because there's a lot of people for whom one little custom recording can make a big difference. They don't have to meet with me for session after session. We don't have to process trauma about every single thing. I have lots of good reviews on my website. People who wanted to stop overeating sugar, people who wanted to start an exercise habit, people who wanted to deal with imposter syndrome or find a place of peace. My app can be fabulous for that. It creates a recording. It takes about 3 minutes to request your recording, and it gets delivered in 5 minutes to your email inbox. So it's a really, is it instant? Close to. And it's a really quick way to get a solution that is extremely personalized. I realize that, YouTube and lots of places have all these audio recordings that are great, but they're pre-made. They are not made for Marianne and for what Marianne wants to work on and set in Marianne's favorite place. Maybe Marianne likes the beach versus a windswept mountain or an alpine lake.
Mm-hmm.
We can make this imagery be whatever you want it to be. And then we can include other things like make me extra confident about my work or help me visualize success with the podcast, whatever it is you might be looking to do. And all of that can be wrapped into Make My Hypno. Now, I also work with people one-to-one, and typically those clients are people who are working on a bigger and more specific objective. So maybe it's a work transition, needing some support going back to work or needing some support with a new relationship. Maybe it's stopping a really bad habit like chewing your nails or pulling your hair. Maybe it's weight management. Maybe it's a phobia. I helped a lovely lady who had a terrible phobia of bees. She had no idea why she was afraid of bees, been afraid of bees her whole life. We had a few sessions together, and then we did a session to figure out where did this fear of bees come from. And she had a vision of being a 6-year-old girl sitting in a garden with roses and lavender and her mother and bumblebees. And her mother said to her, this little girl, your big sister's upstairs in the hospital. She's having a life-saving operation, but she might die. And my client, who was a 6-year-old little girl, heard might die, saw bumblebees, and put the two together. And so she'd been afraid of bumblebees her whole life.
Wow.
So once we realized we could push out fear of bumblebees because this was made up,
Yeah.
right? Then she was no longer afraid of bumblebees.
Oh,
and
I
her
love
life
that.
changed.
I love that.
She didn't have to be afraid of being outdoors and that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Now, does it happen like that every time? No, not necessarily. But for some people, there are these subconscious things that the brain is stuck on that having a little guided help from a person who knows how to do this can help them eliminate that unhelpful thought and put in one that is much more empowering.
I love the whole idea of being able to service people that don't really know what's driving, either their behavior or their feelings about themselves or the world or whatever. I love the idea of being able to use this as a tool. I'm curious, do you ever have that kind of situation and then start to work with somebody and they can't get it? So they don't have a clear vision like that bumblebee woman. Does everybody get to the root cause? Is it sitting there for everybody?
I will be honest, not everybody does.
That's great.
The
the honesty is great. Not that they don't.
I got to be honest with people. That's my job, is to be honest. I had a client a couple of years ago. She had terrible anxiety. This was a woman who'd been a realtor for like 35 years. She was in her early 70s. And for reasons that she didn't understand or know, she came to see me. She had such terrible anxiety. She couldn't She could barely leave her house. She couldn't drive. She couldn't meet her friends at the end of the road for a walk. She couldn't go to the gym. She
Wow.
couldn't, certainly couldn't sell houses. Just absolutely stopped in her tracks over anxiety that appeared to come out of nowhere. And we worked together for several weeks. Usually I only see clients for a couple months because we solve their problems. She was a little longer, and I saw her more intensively. We chipped and chiseled and chipped and chiseled away at these various aspects of what was going on with her. And eventually we got past them and she got better. And now she's back to selling real estate and back to her real life. In her case, and this happens with other clients, we didn't have that aha that can feel so exciting and rewarding. It doesn't mean we didn't achieve a successful outcome. We just had to achieve that outcome through some other means.
That's great clarification, because I was thinking if you didn't get that outcome, I mean, didn't get the aha, you wouldn't get the outcome. So good to hear that.
It's not true.
Yeah, that's
It's
good. That's good to hear.
And some people, when we go to look for where something came from, go back to an experience that we cannot attribute to this lifetime. This is how I put it. And different people sort of, call this past lives, call it imagination. To me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
People go wherever their subconscious is going to take them. And that vision of where they go and what shows up for them is what we need to heal.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I find it fascinating.
I was just going to say, I can see why you did it as a hobby on the side, because it's
really interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about imagination for a minute, because you're big on imagination and I can guess why, but tell us why.
I think so many people have been discouraged from dreaming.
Yes.
And I think it's really important. And I want to be somebody out there on the front lines encouraging people to dream. I don't mean dream to the point of, I don't know, expecting you're going to open your eyes tomorrow and live on a yacht. That's not what I'm talking about. But having the courage and the experience of allowing yourself to imagine good things, imagining that your friend is at the coffee shop when you show up, or imagining that your vacation is even better than you thought it was going to be. Why not? I think imagination is one of the things that we came to planet Earth to do. And for whatever reasons, and I mean, of course, school teachers teach kids to write stories and people do artwork. And I don't mean to say that there isn't imagination in life, but there are a lot of people that kind of get in a daily grind, and maybe they would be happier if they allowed themselves to imagine, to dream, to do artwork, to write in their journal, to whatever it's going to be, to play with that.
I couldn't agree more. I think so many of us, we lose it along the way. And I think that we lose touch with the who we wanted to be and the what we wanted to do. And I think that's tied up in the not imagining. It's for so many women that I've talked to, friends and through this outlet, you can get to a point where you don't even know what you like anymore. You don't even know what your dreams are anymore. I think we just put everything on the back burner because we're doing so much for everybody else. Or we're doing the daily, like you said, the robotic, we got to do, it's the grind. We're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And it gets lost in there until we are very intentional and start tapping back into that. And then I think that changes a lot of things. But So I agree with you.
And it happens to men too, but I think certainly for a lot of women, they really do get into a place where you got the kids, maybe you got the parents, maybe you got sports, maybe you got work, you got demanding things going on over here, you got obligations in your community or at your church or temple, and suddenly all of these things sort of stack up, and where's the space for you? And I mean, hence the girls' weekend, or hence the, taking the kids out so
Yeah.
mommy gets a bath or whatever it is. But I think it's important to make that space and for women to make sure that they are assembling the right people, the right resources around them to be able to dream.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about curiosity, because I think it's falls right in there, right? Similar story, that living in a world where we can lead with curiosity opens us up to new things, helps us refine the things we like, want to explore, all those kinds of things.
The United States is more polarized than we've ever been.
Yes.
And I don't see a way out of it without leaning into curiosity. By that, I mean being open, being interested, being a learner, both in terms of, what's going on with the people you know, as well as what's going on with the people that you don't know who might not appear to agree with you.
Yeah.
Because odds are good that if you are truly curious on both sides and ready to listen, you may never agree on some things, but you might find some things in common that you didn't know you had.
For sure.
And while that doesn't patch things up or make, public policy or fix the polarization immediately, it is a helpful step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's really important for our nation.
You made me think about, I've seen these experiments where they do, and they get, you may have seen them too. They put these large groups of people that don't know each other in a room, and they start asking questions to find the things that they have in common, that when you just look at these people, you may have black and white people, you may have like a motorcycle rider kind of guy versus a sort of computer kind of guy. Like, people look very different. They look like they never share the same circles, right? And then they start asking questions like, who's a father? Who's a mother? Whatever. All these things. And lo and behold, these people have so many things in common. And I just think it goes to that point that you made. Like, there is so much more there if we just try to be open to making those connections and
to just being interested.
Yeah.
Interested because it's community building to be interested.
Yeah.
And it's really we've lost, I think, a certain amount of patience.
You think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. And I think it's important to be curious and to be patient. You might see somebody who, I don't ride a motorcycle. I might see someone who rides a motorcycle and instantly think I have nothing in common with them. But then as we start to, if I'm curious and if I'm patient, that it's not on the outside, it's on the inside, whatever that thing is in common.
Yeah.
Maybe I find out our parents went to the same high school. Like there could be something that aligns you in a way that you would have never expected.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that happens. I'm curious about, what do you think about visualization and how do you use it? What does it mean to you and how do you use it?
Visualization is a huge part of hypnosis. And you can do hypnosis that is less focused on the visual and more focused on imagining smells or sounds or other kinds of ways. But for most Americans, anyway, we're visual people. We're people who see with our eyes. And when we imagine things, we often imagine them in a visual way. And visualization and that imagination, that's a huge part of what makes hypnotherapy work, because you're telling your subconscious to see yourself as not being afraid of bumblebees anymore, or able to get on that airplane, or able to speak in public when you couldn't do that before. And it's that connecting with that imagery, and sort of through that imagery, the heart feeling and the energetic vibration. Like, these are all kind of crazy words thrown out there about all this stuff, but someday we're going to figure out exactly what this is. There is something about that energetic signature that is part of what brings into being the things that you're calling into being. I firmly believe this. And I don't mean like I'm so woo-woo that you can just like imagine you're going to get a job and you're going to get a job. No, you're going to have to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You're going to have to probably interview, you might have to do a resume. Like there are some things that you kind of got to do. But when you lean into that energetic signature, it is what brings things closer to you and what creates new connections and opportunities that turn into new houses or new jobs or whatever. I have 2 books that I wrote. And one of the books I wrote is a law of attraction manifesting book. It's called An Alignment of Spirit, Finding Work You Love. And one of my favorite stories that I tell in that book is it was 1999 and I was moving back to California from Texas and I needed a place to live. And this was kind of before the internet was where you went to look for places to live. So the easiest way to find a place to live was to drive around the neighborhood and look for rent signs. So my girlfriend and I were out in my car driving around a neighborhood where I wanted to look for a place to live. And it was a hot day. And so we pulled over and I was driving my convertible and we pulled the top up. I was pulling the top up on the convertible. My girlfriend is totally blonde standing there on the sidewalk because we were going to get a Coke. We were so hot. And this guy comes walking down the street and says, "What kind of a car are you girls driving there?" And my blonde girlfriend, no kidding, she tossed her hair. It's a convertible. And I'm like, it's a VW Rabbit like this. And well, what are you girls doing here? Oh, well, we're looking for a house for her to rent. She needs a place to live. Oh, he says, my house is for rent. What? Yeah, he says, this is an 80-year-old guy. I live a couple of blocks from here. The wife's at the house. She's watching the tennis game. She and I are going to move up to Northern California. Our kid's a pastor. Maybe we want to live up there. So we're going to rent out the house for a year while we go up there. You should go by. Just go by the house. Tell her you met me and you check it out. See if you want to rent it. We're like, we're going to go get our Cokes and think about it. Thanks. So we got our Cokes. And then I was like, okay, let's just go, right? Like, what's the harm? We'll go drive by. So we drove over there. It was close by. It was a nice house. Found the wife, told her who we were. Anyway, I wind up renting this house.
Wow.
A year later, I wind up buying this house.
Wow.
And I lived in that house for over 20 years. Well, how did I find that house? How did someone ask me walking down the sidewalk if I want, like started this conversation with me? So, I do believe in sort of you draw things to you by what's in your heart and what's in that energetic signature. And so, it's worthwhile thinking about what is the energy that you're sending out to the universe? Are you sending out to the universe, hey, I'm ready to receive a house.
Yeah.
And I'm a nice person and I'll take good care of it? Or are you sending out to the universe, I'm scary, I'm poor, I'm lazy,
Yeah.
you got to figure out how do you frame things in such a way as to feel good about yourself so that you can get to the place of bringing in all these other good things.
That's such a good point. I think the 2 things that I've heard that go along with that are be super specific. If you're thinking about finding and attracting that house, really be super specific when you imagine it. And the other thing that I've heard over and over is that our brains can't tell the difference between our imagining of something and the reality that it happened.
That's right.
So I think that comes into play a lot when we're trying to create new neural pathways and maybe a habit, like you said before, of quitting smoking as an example. I don't know, maybe you can imagine yourself being a non-smoker. And then I guess supposedly that helps you start forming the neural pathways of a non-smoker, right?
That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. I mean, there's a reason why Olympic athletes use hypnosis and visualization, because that's what makes them better on the ski slopes and the gymnastic fields, right?
That's interesting.
Because they're imagining these things helps get you where you're trying to go. Now, it doesn't change the fact that they need to be strong and
Right,
go to the
right.
gym and build their muscles and do all those kinds of things. But part of the challenge is teaching the brain to imagine how this is going to work, how they're going to execute their craft.
I love that. So let's talk about the person that is at this point. They're kind of rethinking or reevaluating their life, some of their internal dialogues, and they want to start shifting it. Where does that really begin? And maybe the begin is always the awareness. So they've done the self-reflection. They know they want to make change. Now what? In your opinion, now what?
So you've got to find the right helper. I might be the right helper. You might be the right helper. Someone else might be the right helper, but you got to find the right helper for you. And you got to figure out what's the path you want to try. And maybe you're not really choosing a path that you have to be on the rest of your life, but what do you want to do in the next 90 days?
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about when I work with clients one-on-one is we often complete a whole project in less than 90 days. Hypnotherapy tends to go sort of hard, deep, and fast. And it's not like psychotherapy that you might be doing this
Forever.
for forever, for many, many months or years. And then the next question is, are you ready to work with someone one-to-one, or do you want some kind of a little trial, just a little test, kind of see if you like this or if it maybe isn't for you?
Yeah.
And, I'm available to have 30-minute calls with people to talk with them about their problems and whether or not I would be a fit to help them solve them. And if people aren't ready for a phone call, I've got Make My Hypno. Try ordering a script on Make My Hypno. They're very affordable. You get it in just a few minutes. You can listen to it as you're falling asleep. And if it's something that you like and is helpful, but it's not, Make My Hypno does not usually transform people. Like, it helps. It's a boost, that kind of a thing. But maybe it's a nice first step to know if that's deeper work you want to do later.
I really like that you made that distinction between therapy and hypnosis, because I guess I hadn't even thought about it, but the fact that even when you're working one-on-one in a sort of in-depth kind of way, I guess I never really thought about the fact that that's probably not a, 2-year gig. That's probably, So I just didn't think about it.
It's just, I have not all, but it's not unusual for my clients to also be going to a psychotherapist. It's another tool.
Sure.
And I work on things in a different way than they work on with their psychotherapist.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And, I even occasionally get referrals from psychotherapists, hey, this person's really struggling with this topic. Could you try hypnosis to see if this will help them release this relationship, discover an unremembered memory, deal with this weird phobia? Because, frankly, you're not going to get over your fear of bumblebees by talking to a psychotherapist, probably. So there are some things that are better done with hypnosis. But I really do kind of think of it as there's the people who have a substantial transformation project that needs to be considered. And then there are people who are in kind of the boost trial, not quite ready for that stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I know that, from looking at your website and chatting with you before, is the common things, like you said, that people just sort of need a quick hit on. I want to quit smoking. I want to quit sugar. I want to do exercise. I want to, work on my eating better. I want to, I don't know what all the common habits that people pick. There's probably a big list.
Stress, sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. All those things. Oh, sleep is one of them. That's fun. That's interesting. But so all those things, which are probably, I want to say, they're way more common and probably, dare I say, with quotes, more straightforward.
It depends. I mean, that's the other thing I've learned is that one person's reason why they have a problem might be very different.
True. That's true.
Why somebody else has the same thing. So, and that's the kind of thing that we can do differentially as I work with clients one-on-one. Now, for just a little recording, I can't distinguish why this person does this and this person does that. But when I'm working with people, because when I first started out, I thought, oh, well, I did this with her. It's going to work with her. Nope. Need a different way, because that's not always, sometimes, but it's not always true.
Oh, that's really funny. I wouldn't have thought of that. All right. So I always like to wrap up with asking this question. If you can only leave one message, what would it be?
Love yourself.
That's a good one. A hard one for many, but a good one.
It doesn't make it easy, but if you can't get to some degree of accepting and seeing your own strengths, the day may come quickly or the day may not. It may be a little further away, but at some point, you're going to start feeling like you're drowning.
Yeah.
You've got to find some way of getting comfortable with yourself.
Love that. So tell us, where do you want people to find you? Where would you like to direct them?
My website is the best place for people to find me. My website is michellewalters.net, spelled just like it sounds, MICHLLEWALTERS.net. And I have a special code that I will give you, a special URL to pass to you for you to put in your show notes for a discount if people want to try makemyhypno.com. So there'll be a code for that.
Awesome.
And you can find out more about all the stuff I got going on. All of it is covered in some form or fashion on michellewalters.net. So thank you so much, Marianne. This has been so fun.
Same for me as well. Thank you for joining me. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Message in the Middle. I hope you found something in this conversation that reminded you that you're not alone and that midlife isn't about winding down. It's about waking up. You're not done. You're just becoming. If this episode speaks to you at all, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And if you're enjoying the show, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It really helps other women find this community and this podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself.